Low ball in, Harry Wilson. Yeah! He's done it! Oh yes! Oh yes! Across the face of goal, headed in. Yes! He's done it! What an introduction! Off you go!
Hello and welcome to That's So Craven, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. This is Dave and this is After Dark. We're streaming live tonight on X and YouTube, so welcome to everyone who's joining us, and please send us in your questions and your comments and we'll do our best to answer those throughout the show. So tonight I think we'll touch on Marco Silva's future because it's been in the press the last couple of days, and I think we just need to dissect that a little bit. And Marco, we're also going to have to touch on very briefly the Aston Villa game, and then we'll quickly move on to Saturday's game against Everton back at Craven Cottage. Finally, we've got loads of great questions that were posted in our Discord, so we'll go through those at the end. And if you want a link to join the Discord, it's all in our social description, so just go into our socials, you'll find the link, and yeah, you can send us in questions that we'll answer during the show. So joining me tonight, we have the Thursday night MVP. It's Fulham legend, Mary Southgate. So Townsend, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm good. I'm still making it above Mark, who's the After Dark king as well at the moment. But yeah, I'm good, thank you. I just want to give a shout out as well to Jack and like all the OG That's So Craven people for their 200th episode on Sunday, which is just amazing.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just really like grateful to be a part of it all. So yeah, a big shout out to Jack and all of them, Elton, Sam, for having me on board all this time. It's and a big congratulations on 200.
200, that's great, isn't it? A real milestone. It was great to see the originals on the show. Fantastic show. If you haven't heard it, then make sure you go back on Spotify or on Apple podcasts and check it out. And also returning to the pod, then we also have Mark, who, or should I say Kermit, who's developed a nickname after his Donald Trump impression last week's show. So how's it going, Kermit?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm not going to attempt that again until we have the proper mic set up, which it's a work in progress. But I'll watch enough videos and I'll throw out all the sort of the sound bites that he likes to give. But next time, perhaps. Anyway, I'm happy to be here. There'll be no more Trump/Kermit impressions this time, I'm afraid. But we'll be ready next time, maybe.
Brilliant. And finally, ahead of his first game at Craven Cottage on Saturday, we're welcoming back to the pod Mike Levy from Fulham, Boston. So, Mike, how are you, mate? And just how excited are you about going to Fulham on Saturday?
I am so excited to be coming out. I fly out tonight. It's going to be awesome. I wanted to make sure that I jumped on before that. And Mark, when you said proper mic, I was really, really honored that you were referring to me there. So feel free to do the impression. I'm here to hear it.
Tell us a bit about what you're going to be doing on Saturday then, because I think you've got a bit of a whole day planned, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a whole day planned. I'm meeting a couple people from a couple different podcasts that we've done in the past. I'm actually going to be meeting Stevie and Mark as well in advance of the match, and then I'm actually going to be meeting with the club just before the match to go get to watch warm-ups, go get to sit in the dugout, maybe take some pictures. Hopefully, if Jedi's not too busy, he can throw me a quick hi or something like that. I don't know. Hiya, is that what Scousers say? So it'll be a really great time. Going to be in the area. If anyone sees me, feel free to say hi. I'm going to be an insane person, probably, and incredibly excited. It'll be a fever. I am elated to be going to my first match at the Cottage.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to have a great day, and let's just hope Fulham do the business and really top it off. And as Jim's just said in the group, let's all buy Mark a beer on Saturday. It's going to be it could be a messy one, but if you see him, get him a beer. I like that.
Wait. Before we get into this, so there's one law I learned about going to the ground, which is different than in the US, which is apparently you cannot drink within view of the field.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, you can't have a drink in your seat. Yeah, you've got to have it all in the
Is
enclosure.
this? Don't get me
And,
wrong. I think I understand why, having watched some other matches in the past, but that's something that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels a little bit outdated, doesn't it? Okay, so look, welcome to Mike. It's great to have him back on the show. And I think before we kind of get into, I suppose, last week's game and next week's game, there's obviously been lots of rumors about Marco Silva's future in the last 24 hours. We had stuff coming out of Saudi Arabia saying that he's agreed terms with Al Hilal. We know there's these ongoing rumors around Spurs. I even saw something that he might have rejected a contract at Fulham. And having checked it out with Fulham fan news, who's quite well attuned to this kind of stuff, he's kind of explained to us that he doesn't believe there's been any contact as such with Marco yet, but it does sound like he's open to a move this summer, particularly if Spurs come calling. And the timing of all this isn't particularly good, ahead of the run-in of games, and we're still chasing Europe. So I thought I'd just throw this one out to the group, and just thought, does anyone have any thoughts that they'd like to share about these rumours?
I don't want Marco Silva to go, if I'm honest. So I'd like the rumours to be false. I think we have to understand there will be paper talk. There is all year round, but obviously where it's nearing the end of the season, it is a bit of a worry. And to hear that potentially he's open to having these conversations is a worry, especially like you said, we're in this end run-in and we're really passionate about trying to get as many points as we can now. And currently where we are in the league, we want to at least finish top half, but we know we're chasing for that 8th spot. So it's like a worry if his head's not quite in it, and then you start to think a bit deeper. You think, okay, recent results haven't been great. Is that linked at all? I'm not actually saying that it is linked, but it starts to raise questions if this is all going on in the background. But for me, I don't want him to leave. I think he's been excellent, and I know it's been a bit of a bumpy last few weeks and last few games, but overall, I think he's an excellent manager, and I personally would like him to stay. But we've just got to keep focused the best we can on the games, really, starting this Saturday.
Let me jump in on that as well, because completely agree with Mary. And I think one thing that's really important to note when we look at Marco, who does have flaws, right? No one's saying he's perfect. We are a bit predictable in attack. He's stubborn with his first team picks. I understand all those arguments, and they're valid arguments as well, right? But every season, we have had a key player ripped away from us, right? Mitrovic, Palhinha. And every season, we haven't really been affected. We've adjusted. We've had to tweak our game plan. So I really think that, he's done really well with the deck of cards that he has, right? The hand that he's been given. He's not perfect. We can hope for improvement. We hope we see it. But given the squad he has and the options, he's done amazingly. I don't really understand the Saudi links because I think Marco's still super young. He's not looking for a payday. He's frequently said the Premier League is the best league in the world. And when you look at the names linked, I don't know the third manager very well, so I don't want to comment on that. But Nuno and Marco are very different coaches, right? And I think Nuno's already done his time there. So I believe Nuno and Marco have the same agent. Maybe the agent's looking for a payday and agitating, things like that. But I don't understand how Al Hilal can just be like, I want a Premier League manager, one that's pretty good, these two. And they have completely different playing styles. So that's kind of confusing to me. Spurs makes a lot more sense. He will have, to be frank, more budget and more talent to play with. Maybe he can go for a trophy. That's what worries me more.
So I'm not sure I fully agree there, because one of the things I find really interesting about Fulham's finances, and again, I am not an accountant, I don't know anything about this stuff. Unfortunately, you're 100% right there, Mark, in the sense that we've sold a key player every year. We also haven't necessarily spent a ton of money. And the way that I understand the financial ramifications of our spending, this year is actually a really big year for us, because we are essentially getting out of all of the bedlam that we had from when we first came up and went on that spending spree. So we're actually going to have a lot of money available, not just from the sales of Palhinha and Mitrovic, but also from the Stansfield sale. So I actually think his budget's going to be pretty healthy if he sticks around. In terms of the Saudi links, I don't know if I'm allowed to say who it is, but I have heard from another Fulham journalist that The links, there's nothing to them right now. There have been no contacts made. There's nothing that's happened. I think this is, as Mary said, it's truly paper talk. But at the same time, I think it's also rewarding to see not only that Marco has gotten this credit to us. And again, I echo everybody's sentiments. I hope he stays. He's not a perfect manager, but he's great for us. That at the end of the day, if we can show that Fulham can be a place where you can build a career, whether it's as a player or a manager, that's how you attract the next great line of talent, whether it's a player, whether it's a manager. So I actually think this is a huge credit to Marco, a huge credit to Fulham. Again, I don't want him to go in any circumstance, but simultaneously, like, if we can put ourselves in the shop window and continue to build this platform and show how much of a giant club that we are, or as Mark would say, a huge club that we are, then it'd be totally worth it. It's something that, we just have to keep investing. And Tony Khan has said he wants Marco here for his life. Now it's time to put the money where his mouth is.
And actually, we've had two kind of comments in the chat around this. One from is on the screen at the moment from our very own Skibby, and he says, "Do we feel that Fulham don't match his ambitions?" And then Jim's followed up with, "I think the Khans don't match his ambitions." So it's kind of maybe one in the same. But does anyone? I mean, Mark, you've touched on this before. I know you love a rant on the Khans spending. Is there anything you want to say on those comments?
I think Mike raised a very salient point, and Fulham fan news, great on the Discord. Get on the Discord if you're not on it already. Great community, all that. But Fulham fan news has placated me a few times when I go on my rant saying, look, we were in the hole of the money. So we've finally gotten out of that. We've done 3 years in the Prem. We should have a little more powder, which I get. I still don't feel like we're going to spend it. I don't know if the Khans, as Jim said, do match our ambition. I think they have multiple projects. Fulham is one of them. So long as we don't embarrass them by being relegated and being a yo-yo club, for them, I think job done. If we get Europe, let's put it this way. The goal of getting Europe is not as much of an incentive for them as the embarrassment of being relegated repeatedly. That's how I think they see it, because they are business people, and ultimately they want to stop pumping money into it and have it slowly become sustainable. I get that from a business perspective, but I think a lot of the fan base want us to hit Europe even this year. Even if we're not ready with the squad, we have a summer to make the squad ready, right? And then we have that European money coming in if we get it. It's a long shot now. I think Marco wants Europe. I think a lot of the players want Europe. So really, like Jim said, in my eyes, from what I've seen so far, it really only seems like the owners don't want Europe.
I will say, I'm not sure if the owners don't want Europe. I think one of the really interesting things is you look at all these clubs that have gotten into Europe and not kicked on from it. Don't get me wrong. There's absolutely a path to, make it to the Conference League and win the Conference League and go to Europa and, have a run there. But one of the really interesting things is you look at teams like Burnley, who made Europe too early. You look at teams like Wolves, who made, I believe it was the Europa League just a few years ago, and they're sitting in, 17th right now. So, or excuse me, now they're sitting in 14th, I think. But it's one of those things where we have to realize, to a degree, we've improved almost every season under Marco. And I think if we can convince them that, hey, there's going to be more in the war chest, that even if we finish somewhere between 8th and 11th this year, that the real drive of the club next season is to kick on into making Europe, making sure we don't sell our best players, because he's commented on that so many times, like Robinson, making sure that he doesn't go. I think that's our best path to not only keeping him, but also placating the fan base to a degree and saying, hey, this is the next step in the project. We've done our 3 years in the Prem, we've built ourselves up, and now we can continue, we can kick on into the next spot.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I want to play devil's advocate on you a little bit here. And I'm just thinking from the Khans perspective where, okay, yeah, I think we probably do have some room with PSR now, given that those big years of spending that Mike alluded to earlier they've gone away. And we probably have room. But I think, if you actually look at how Fulham is run at a club from a business perspective, they lose money every year, anywhere between kind of 30 million all the way up to 100 million, depending on where we finish in the league primarily. And the more that we spend in any kind of given year, the more pressure we put ourselves under for the next 5 years, because our amortization of those fees gets spread out over 5 years. And the higher that cost base is, all it takes is a year where we finish 14th instead of 9th or 10th, and we could make so much more of a loss. And I think the Khans, they did spend last summer. I mean, we did break our transfer record in Emil Smith Rowe. I think we spent 75 million on 3 players last summer. That's going to carry a hell of a amortized value over the next 5 years. They've also spent amazingly on the Riverside, and look, say what you like about the Riverside, but they certainly put their money where their mouth was, and made a huge investment, you'd think, for the future of the club to try and make it sustainable. Are we in danger of kind of, are they the worst owners? Are we in danger of kind of giving them, a bit of an unfair ride, really, when they're the ones that are actually taking the losses every year?
Yeah, great point. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I just want to jump on that as well. Like, I think this summer will say a lot, and this transfer window will say a lot about where they actually sit with what their ambitions are as the owners, and where Silver's ambitions are, and us as fans. I think, like you said, we have spent some money, and we had Smith Rowe and we've brought in other people along the way. But if we do want to be getting Europe, and they want to be getting Europe, and we know Silver does, etc., then we have to strengthen this squad. We have to get 6-7 decent players in that are going to help us have depth and the numbers to bring in, because it's going to, like Mike said, it has a big impact on your Premier League matches if we're in these competitions. So I think, as much as they've invested with the ground and that, and we want them to invest with players, I suppose they've got to find the right balance. But whatever they do this summer is going to be a big indication on where they're actually at. And the thing I think is really important as well is our ambitions as fans is always going to be different to the owners, because we live and breathe Fulham. They don't. It is a business model for them, and as much as they will try and be so invested in it, it's always going to be different to where we're at, because it is it's our club. Do you see what I mean? So we just got to make sure that our ambitions and what we expect of them is what's reasonable, I suppose. Yeah, and realistic. But I obviously do want them to spend, and I do want them to bring the players in. So, Khans, please do. But yeah, I don't know. I think it can be easy to get carried away, but I just think our thoughts behind it will always be stronger than what they will want.
Yep. And I also think I've been saying this point in the Discord for a while, that it doesn't actually, spending lots of money on players doesn't actually guarantee that they're going to perform. I mean, ESR, classic example of that, but ask Man United about, overspending on players and not getting the results. I think it's very important that, don't get too focused. We don't get too focused really on how much money Fulham have to spend. I think the key is getting value in the market, like looking at opportunities where players might be out of contract, or we can do a deal for a player that might have fallen out of favour. That's a player that can come in and improve our squad. If we can do that for good fees, that's sensible business. Surely that's just as good as spending 30 million on a player that may or may not work out.
So, Dave, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that statement, right? And I think a big issue is sort of how we do business. And to break that down a little bit, we know Marco's a big fan of Premier League proven, right? So that's typically what we've gone with Anderson, and that's kind of what we were trying to go with ESR. ESR has kind of been a dud, but he's also got 6 goals from open play with 0 confidence and not playing all the time. So, it's not as terrible as I think people believe. It's just the fact that his transfer fee was so high. But when you look at other clubs, right, like Villa, who've really kicked on and done really, really well, they seem to be able to replace or sell really high values players without impacting their squad. So John Duran went to Saudi for 55. Emi Martinez is probably going to go next year for 40 or 55 or something like that, right? Douglas Luiz, another player. And it feels like when they sell at a really good fee, but it doesn't really impact them. Whereas for us, we do have to change our whole style. And the Premier League proven thing. Like, we don't really take risks, just like Bournemouth did with Huijsen, who's their center back, who's probably they nicked him from Juventus, and now they're probably going to sell him for 3x. So I don't know whether, I know we're going to touch on the academy a little bit later, but we don't seem to really take risks with our recruitment. And Polina was a great risk that paid off for us, right? 2 fantastic seasons, and we doubled our money. So, it's a longer conversation, and I do recognize your points. I think our recruiting skill is excellent. We recruit the right players. My argument is that if we inflate the budget, maybe we can get, instead of getting a 40 million pound player for 20 million, maybe we can get a 70 million pound player for 35 million. And maybe that's what we tried to do with ESR. But I'm just hopeful this summer we really go for it.
I will say, Mark, one thing I would love to see us do more, and I love every time that we bring over somebody from who's Portuguese speaking or Spanish speaking, and kind of, creates that group. And we have, it seems like we have a bunch of really interesting groups within the locker room. For all the talk about Marco loving Premier League experience, the one thing I would have loved to see us do is we always seem to be taking, the B team from one of the top clubs, whether it's one of the former Arsenal boys, whether it's Pereira from Man United. I don't fully understand why we don't invest more in the teams that are recently relegated or relegated this season. I know it's competitive, but especially with the release clauses that are put in for when players get relegated, I'd really love to see that, because those players do have Premier League experience too. And you look at the teams that are going down this season in Leicester, Southampton, and Luton. It's one of those things that I would almost love to see us, I would almost love to see us invest in those younger players down there. And I think that's something that I would really be interested in, how that would actually work for us.
Yeah. I mean, our transfer policy is basically to, find proven Premier League experienced players around 27 years old. And, they don't have a lot of resale value, but we get kind of 5 good years out of them. And, they're players like Iwobi and Anderson I'm referring to here. This is kind of how we've structured. Emil Smith-Rowe, I think, is a little bit different. He's a bit younger. So, he's got more time, and actually we could get resale value on here if his performances do improve, next year or the year after. So I suppose it's a little bit about finding the balance. I think but you're right. I think to find and unearth those gems like Polina and then be able to flip them after a couple of years for profit, that's a very sustainable model that Brighton and the likes have used for some time. And I think what you're saying is it'd be nice to see a bit more of that. Maybe the balance is too much in the way of proven experienced players and not so much in these gems that can grow with us.
But Dave, one thing to say there is, and we haven't talked about this because I don't think anybody really wants to think about him going, but if Jedi leaves us, we bought him for what, 2.2 million in the championship?
Yeah.
And he will sell for what, 40, 50 million? That's the type of investment. We have unlocked a gem there.
Yeah. And if we need, we've got these assets. If we ever had a PSR issue, I think, some that would really help us out, putting some, selling something. I don't think we're in that position. It's funny that you mentioned Villa earlier, Mark, but they actually have got a PSR issue. They're going to have to sell someone before June, I believe. So you'll probably see some shenanigans going on with another Premier League club to try and find a loophole in that. And they also desperately need Champions League to kind of, because they'll lose so much income by falling below that now. So it's very dangerous. You've got to be very careful, I think, not to overspend and not to increase your losses to your overheads to a level where you're so reliant on finishing in European places, because that season where it goes wrong, it can really blow up in your face and cause more problems for the future. Is the only final point I'd make on that. I'm just thinking we did nearly half an hour on that subject, and I'm trying to think. We've got quite a lot to talk about, and I know, Mike, you've got till 9, Mike, am I right?
I can keep going. We're good.
You can keep going. Well, I think,
yeah.
I don't know. I saw a few comments at the start of when we first logged on. Please don't talk about Aston Villa. Let's put this to the vote. Do we want to talk about Aston Villa? Because we can move past it. I get a show of hands if you actually want to talk about it, and if not, we can just jump right to Everton. No hands. Right. Well, there we go. Let's move right past Aston Villa. The one, leave it in the past where it belongs. And sorry for the making you do the slide, Jack. But yeah, we don't want to talk about that game. We're going to move straight to Everton. Now, Everton.
Do you know what? I'm actually going to add one thing, which is just
please.
a bit of an annoying comment.
Yeah,
Like, I'm pretty sure their goal, obviously it was a set piece, was their 15th set piece goal this season. And it's like, when you know a team is scoring so many set pieces, and this is another thing, like Everton, I think a third of their goals this season have been from set pieces. When you know a team is scoring so many set pieces in a season, we have to be better. And it's so frustrating that, again, I'm sure I literally said this last week, like against Southampton, we're conceding a set piece. Last week, we're conceding a set piece. And it's like, come on. I know we've only got 3 games left. There's not much time to change it now. But when that's their 15th set piece goal, it's not like they've just scored, like us. We hardly score any set pieces. So it's not a real threat of ours. But when you're playing a team and it is such a threat, we've got to do something about it. Like, we need to be prepped for this Everton game. And work out, are we zonal marking or not?
The zonal marking, yeah. I mean, it's a good tangent actually to go off on, because it's quite an important issue. As you've said, there's been multiple occasions recently where we've conceded from a set piece, and we know that actually in the other half we're not very good at scoring them. I think we've scored the lowest amount from corners this season out of all the teams in the league. Is this an example of Marco's stubbornness, not bringing in a set piece coach? I feel like we're one of the only teams in the league that doesn't have one, and when you see those stats, it suggests that we've got that wrong. I mean, what's everyone's thoughts on that?
That's a great point, Dave. I'm going to jump in real quick. We have 2 massive Nordic gods in Anderson and Berger, who for some reason don't want to ruin their face and head the ball. So that's kind of a disappointment. But look, Arsenal have used it for great effect, right? They were like joked as like the new Stoke in terms of how they're utilizing set pieces. So for us to really neglect it is hugely disappointing, both defensively and offensively. We used to be so good at them. I don't know if it was last season or the season before, but when we were employing those NBA-style blocks and people were getting all frustrated, being like, oh, he blocked me from getting the ball. But we've done that before. We know we can do them. Maybe we need to maneuver the personnel or sort of try and repurpose them or pick up someone in the summer that can do that. But, it's really disappointing that we're not using that as an avenue to attack. And, Tielemans, I think they spoke about it in the other pod. Villa knew they could exploit this weakness, and they just executed. So there was a game plan. They had a strategy. They did the strategy well, and it worked. So, yeah, very disappointing.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's pick up again on that a little bit later. I think it actually comes up in one of the questions that was asked on Discord. So, let's come back to that point. Everton, Mike's first game at Craven Cottage. I mean, it's got to be a win, Mike, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That is the only option. It has to be a win. We need to see a reaction from the boys, because at the end of the day, I think everybody is working their socks off. And I know he didn't play in the match, but I'm not sure if what everybody's read about Timothy Castagna, and he was playing injured for several months. Like, we need to react for the fans, for our pride, for the European dream, but also for all the work that we've put in over the course of the season. It would be an injustice to end the season, on a skid. It would not represent what this season has really been.
Yeah. Skibby said you might not get invited back, Mike, if we don't win. So
I don't know if he meant to the podcast or if he meant to the UK or to the Cottage. And
probably
any of those would be interesting.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Jim's just made an interesting point I was going to raise, is that the last 2 games at home against Everton, last 2 seasons have both been 0-0. Really frustrating games. Pickford's been fantastic, actually, in both of those games. And, David Moyes has got organised again. The only blessing, I think, is that Tarkowski got injured a few weeks ago for the remainder of the season. And since then, they've started to concede. Their form isn't particularly good either. They get lots of draws. They don't lose many. But I think in the last 10 games, they've only won 1. And that was against Palace or Forest? It was
Forest.
one of those.
Yeah,
Forest.
Forest, yeah. So it does suggest that that this is an opportunity. And I guess it's a must-win game. Does everyone see it as a must-win game?
Absolutely.
100%. And I think for morale as well, like with the fans and the players, if we are still talking about Europe, I think we just need to be looking at top 10 and getting as many points as possible. But for morale, we do need to be winning. Have we lost 3 out of our last 4 games? Which we have not had that sort of stat for a little while. So I think we need the boost. I see it as a win and a must-win game. I think we are going to win this game quite well. But I agree with what you said. Like since he got subbed off in the Man City game, I think then they conceded 2 against City and 2 against Ipswich after being 2-0 up. So I do think this is a good opportunity to pounce, and I can see us getting goals. But like you said, they've done a lot of draws. They've often having 1-1s or just a 1-0 loss and quite narrow score lines. So I think it's one of those, it's going to be tough at times to break down, and we have to make sure we get that first goal, because if they get the first one, as we know from their recent results, they can protect their goal. And they've got Pickford, who doesn't shut up either. But it's a winnable and a must-win game.
He's played very well against us in the last 2 games, really well. So he's obviously quite confident when he comes to Craven Cottage. And I think you're right. I think we just need to break that deadlock early. And, it could be a special day, because if we win, it takes us above our record points total, and that's an achievement in itself, I think. It'll be our most successful season in the Premier League. And I think that's something to be applauded and celebrated. It's great to have Mike here to celebrate that. If it goes through, we'll get the old baby Guinnesses out after the game, I'm sure, and do it Fulham Boston style. So I just wanted to talk a little bit before we talk about Fulham and who's available and what we think, how the team might line up and approach the game. Is there any threats in that Everton team, or any kind of weaknesses that anyone sees that Fulham might have to be wary of and or take advantage of, I suppose?
So, Dave, one thing I find really interesting, and I'll come back to your point in a second, because I thought something that Jim wrote in there about Everton is always a 0-0, and you addressed it too. From a Fulham perspective, we haven't drawn a ton of games this season, and I think that's something that has not been stated enough, is that we win or we lose. There really are no draws, and maybe that's a Marco Silva mentality. But as you look at Everton and their turgidness and their willingness to draw games, I think that is something we can potentially exploit as they want to sit back more. I think that gives us an opportunity to allow some of our more creative players to really step up and find that space. We even saw it against Southampton, where when Adama comes off the bench, he starts exploiting that space a little bit more. Cess is given the freedom to roam a little bit more. I think that's an area where we can really unlock, is their fear of losing, especially with the run that they've been on. And our fairly dismissive attitude towards draws, apparently, could actually play to our advantage. It could also hinder us, but it would be an interesting note.
We've notoriously struggled against teams that sit back in the low block this season at home. So, what can we do differently, Mark? And also, is there anyone in the Everton team that stands out as a player we need to be wary of?
I have great set of statements. I'll start with the second one first. I like the look of Decore. I didn't understand it when we were linked with him, and I think he's probably 30 now, if not 29. He's one of the older players, and I didn't like, okay, we got Iwobi from Everton and stuff, but that guy is a warrior, and he can push through, and he has a shot on him. So he's a fighter, he's physical, and he can put the ball in the back of the net. God, I wish we had an 8 that could do that. That would be pretty cool. Decore, bit worrying. McNeil does all right against us. I'd also say Beto. Beto brings the chaos. He's for me, probably a slightly worse Mitrovic. He's big. He's in your face. He puts himself about. Bassi can handle that. I don't really know if Anderson can. It kind of depends what Anderson shows up. And if he just gets bullied, that could be painful for us. Beto already broke our heart in the 94th minute last time with just a classic proper Brexit goal of get in their face, cause chaos, head it in. So I hope that doesn't happen again. How do we beat the low block? Yeah, good point from Jim. We need to not This is a very fair criticism of Marco. We attack from the left with Iwobi and maybe Willian and Robbo doing a cross, and we try and score that way. Depends on the quality of Robbo's crosses. Also, if they have three massive center backs, nothing's ever going to happen. We can put in 30 crosses and nothing's going to happen, right? So we need to. I haven't been the biggest fan of TC, but good through balls, long shots where we don't have him now. I don't think he's back for the season, but someone like Muniz that can pick up the spilled shot if it's a dodgy keeper and score that would be great. Or a cutback. We need to vary our attack. Our attack is very predictable from one side, and 90% of the time it's a cross. I would love, like I said, getting to the byline, doing a cutback, and then a late runner from ESR or from Berger to hit it, because the low block will push back towards the goal, right? And it will open up that space right in front of the box. So, like, come on. I know Marco's way, way more intelligent and experienced than me, but we got to mix it up. We can't just keep doing crosses into three center backs.
Mary, Mark raises a really good point there. And I think one of the things that's happened sometimes when Rao starts over like Muniz, who's kind of a bit more direct and can get in behind, is Rao likes to drop deep and link up play. And I think recently we've struggled to kind of get in behind him. So we don't have, and then we just whipping balls into the box to big centre backs. That could be a recipe for disaster, as Mark says on Saturday. What can we do different? Is it personnel, or is it something tactical that Marco can do? How can we break this low block?
I think the fact that we normally play on the left, but if we have Cess, I wonder whether he can start to run in a little bit and cut in and be that player that runs off, because I can't see, let's say ESR starts in the 10, I think he possibly could. I don't see him as a player that is going to run in behind Jimenez. And I do like Jimenez coming in and being physical and winning the ball back and getting, like, chesting the ball and getting control of it. I think it's a really strong point of his. But like you say, it does create an issue of there's nobody to run on behind. But I wonder whether Cess can sometimes be that player and cut in. Or like you said, can we receive... well, I think we should be playing on the floor a lot more in this game, because they're quite physical and they've got big players. We do need to keep the ball playing fast, keep it on the floor. There was a brilliant ball from Tete to Cess in the Villa game just before the corner that they scored from, annoyingly. But it completely split them and Cess got in behind. And I think with a low block, obviously that's challenging because of the way they're set up. But if we can find those balls along the floor that can just break those lines a little bit, that perhaps Cess can then cut back, like Mark said, play some balls back in for someone to run onto, things like that. But we've got to keep the ball on the floor, and we've got to find a way of getting somebody to run in behind. I don't know. I think Cess could be that player because he's very fast, he's very strong, he's good at anticipating, and he's proved that he's in the right place at the right time quite a lot. And I'm hoping that having Tete and Cess back on that right is what I think could happen. But having them back there just helps us to even out which side we're actually playing on. We're not so left-sided now. But yeah, they're going to be physical, aren't they? And we've got to try and avoid that the best we can, because it's not really our game. Or we match it, but I can't see us matching it.
Mate, it's a brilliant point. And, there was another opportunity on Saturday as well where Iwobi played like a ball on the ground to Wilson in the second half, and that was just another example of, if we can keep the ball on the ground, we've got players that can, get him, can get him behind and create chances. Harry Wilson's an example. Cess, I think we saw signs of that in the first half last week. There was a few times where I saw Cess break through down the right-hand side. Mike, it's bizarre. I kind of feel like Cess is our biggest goal threat at the moment, which is crazy when you think 2 months ago he wasn't even in the team. I presume you would start him on Saturday. And, Mary raised ESR. Is this the right kind of game for ESR? He does tend to do well against like the teams at the lower end of the table. He scored the most of his 6 goals this season have come against kind of Leicester's and Ipswich and the likes. Sorry, Leicester's and well, it's come from teams against the bottom of the table. So I just think it probably quite a good shout there. Someone else might be able to chip in with a goal. But how do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because one of the really cool things about, I'm seeing it in the chat, and I just heard you make the comment, we're actually, for all of the injuries that we're starting to get, we're also getting people back at the same time. Like Harry Wilson is now available again, which I know it's taking him some time to get back into things, and he doesn't look like he has the same form quite yet as he had before, but I'm excited that he's back. At times I thought Iwobi has looked tired. Adama, I thought, was one of the few bright spots in both of the Southampton and the Villa games when he came on. Was he at his best? Absolutely not, but he was more engaged than I've seen him look in a long time. I think right now Cess is an absolute no-brainer. You have to start him. He's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet. He is one of our most dangerous goal scorers. I think he has, what is it, like 6 or 8 goal contributions since he started coming back into the lineup. So I think he absolutely has to be a nailed-on starter. What concerns me is that he also is probably our most clutch player right now. And so when Marco does start to think about subs later in the game, bringing on a Wilson, bringing on an Adama, whoever we're going to bring in, whether it's even an ESR, I really don't want to see Cess coming off the field. Cess has the versatility he's shown to play the left, the right, even at fullback when we need him. We should be moving him around, putting him in positions to score goals. Iwobi has looked tired at times. Pereira puts in an absolute ton of work if he's in the lineup. Those are the players I think we should be rotating more than Cess, who, as you said, is kind of our guy who's going to be putting balls in the net or putting us in dangerous positions right now.
Oh, Mike's gone quiet for me there, but it's a great point. And I think, last Saturday against Aston Villa, it seemed bizarre to take Cess off, particularly given that, the week before he'd popped up with the winner in the last minute. That was a really strange decision. And I agree. I think he should definitely, we need to take advantage of his good form and his goal scoring form over the last kind of 2 months. He was nominated for Player of the Month for April, and I just think he's a big part now of our attacking play, particularly with Muniz out. Mark, there's a few injuries for Saturday, and there's a few kind of unknowns. We know Castagne has had an operation which now rules him out for the season, and looks like he's been playing with that for some time, that injury. It's not been well reported, but it does explain perhaps why he looked a little bit low behind the curve compared to his performances last season. We've also got Kenny Tete's back in the team, but he's still he's still coming back, I suppose, to full match fitness. Robinson's playing with a bit of a knock, as we know, and we last week we were missing Andreas. There wasn't really an explanation for that, although Fulham Fan News has said in the Discord that he's heard there's a knock there. He also mentioned that there might be a knock to Lukic too, and with Reed out, we might be getting a bit bare bones. That's a long question, I know, but I guess how do we line up for you on Saturday, bearing in mind there's potentially a few unknown problems there?
Yeah, wow, we're really the walking wounded now, aren't we? So luckily a lot of the starters seem to be available. Not having Muniz is terrible. Not having Nelson for pretty much the whole season also sucks as well. So we're just permanently down a winger. So that's fun. But yeah, I think Marco will really take it to, we're at home. We're against a team that on paper we should beat. Now, I hate saying that because knowing us on paper, the teams we should lose to, we tend to do quite well. And on Ipswich and Southampton, whoever else, I know we just about scraped a win in the 94th minute with Southampton, but the previous one was a draw. Ipswich was 2 draws. A badly mauled Wolves was a 4-1 loss somehow. Now Wolves are far more respectable and they're climbing up the table. But I think we'll start with we'll have the back 4 as per usual. Hopefully the Lukic thing is just a rumor. But yeah, we are looking pretty bare bones. Kind of related to a couple of questions we're getting on later. Maybe King could come. That would be unlikely, but it feels like Marco doesn't really make a decision until he's pushed to, and he absolutely has to. And if we're out of players, to be honest, I think he'd rather start TC instead of King, though I wouldn't, but I'm not a Premier League manager. But yeah, standard 4 at the back, 3 in the middle. Cess starts. Cess should absolutely stay on, as Mike was saying. He's been so good, so hungry as well. I love to see that. I feel like the team really lacks directness sometimes. We're always looking for that final pass or that perfect cross. Just have a shot at goal. Test the goalkeeper. Sometimes he'll screw it up, or he'll rebound off his glove and go into a striker who'll tap it in. So you don't know until you take the shot, right? But yeah, now kind of jumping a little bit ahead, and I'll throw it to the crew, because I think this was a really, really great question. Let me just find out real quick who said it. Yes, this was from Jungle Whites, talking about the striker position. Callum Osmond or Carlos Vinicius on the bench? What are we feeling?
Yeah, so Osmond's in training with the first team this week. So there's every chance that we might see him at least on the bench before the end of the season. I think more likely if our European challenge falters. But it's an interesting one because, you know, I'm not sure what Vinny's really offering in there. You know, Mike, would you like to see a youngster get an opportunity?
I absolutely would. It's just that's not the youngster I was thinking of. I think everybody is waiting for King, candidly. I do love the idea, and having that as an unknown in the availability is great, but there's something about the fact that we are so light at striker right now, and we've at least seen Vinicius score one Premier League goal before for us. That makes me at least want to think that if we needed him to come in clutch, that he could possibly do it. But the fact that we're having this conversation really highlights the level of drop-off after the Muniz and Jimenez conversation about who comes in next.
Yeah.
For me, I'm team putting Adama up there. And I think against an Everton, like when you need someone a bit like strong up there, and where this is the sort of game that we need Muniz. Obviously, we don't have him, but I don't know. I don't see it happening, but I feel like there's something about putting Adama up there that would just cause issues for them and cause a challenge. And I wonder, I don't think it will happen, but I wonder whether it would have a benefit. I think it would.
Well, Mary, rewind a few years and remember we put Dan James up top and he scored 2 against Everton.
Yes, so here we are. Let's do it again.
Like, yeah. Well, I don't think we can get Dan James back. I think he's celebrating right now. But I love the idea of an Adama or Cess up there potentially even.
I have 2 issues with Adama up there, though I understand the theory, right? One is his finishing is pretty atrocious, so that's already a slight negative. Second is he is way too honest to be a striker. I think Lisandro Martinez had like a dirty 2-footed tackle and it didn't hurt him, so he just kept like, no, mate, like fall to the ground like you've been shot. Like, did you notice? I'm going to throw shade. Absolutely going to throw shade because I sit in Johnny Haynes. So when we were playing Chelsea, Cucurella and Neto, every time they were touched, I could hear their high-pitched squeal as they rolled across the grass. That's what we need in our striker. You got to finish. And if you can't finish, you got to get the penalty, 100%. So, too honest for me.
In his defense, he would actually have to probably get hit by like a Mack truck for it to actually phase him in any capacity. Yeah. So maybe Cess is the better option up there. Let's put Cess up top.
If I go back and actually answer that question without Adama, I would say Osman, because if we think about the future as well, we're not going to have Vinny having an impact long term. If he's here next year, I don't know, probably isn't going to be. So if we look at the future and we know we want King in there, whatever's going on with him. But out of the 2, Osman, there is a future there for him. It's time for him to get a bit of experience, even being on the bench. So, yeah, 100%. I think if we look.
And I think it'd be a pleasant surprise to see some new players.
Oh, sorry, Dave. Sorry. Just jumping in, one final point, because Mary, I completely agree with Mary and Mike. But like the FA Cup game against United, right? They had Højlund up against us, who was like borderline useless. And they brought on their youngster, Obi. and Obi was dangerous.
Ooh.
We made probably the save of the season with Leno, like a fingertip save that a millimeter off and that goes in, because the youngsters are hungry. Like Sessegnon is hungry, Godo is hungry, King is hungry. So 100% put Osmond on. So let's see what happens. At least he's going to give it his best shot, right? I'm not saying Vinny won't, but like Osmond will have that like youthful exuberance and energy to prove himself. First Prem game, he's going to want to score.
And also, by the way, I'm pretty sure there are some rumors going around that Marco's contingency for staying next season is that Vinny has to go. It's a mere him scenario at this point.
Yeah, well, he's out of contract, Vinny, so I'd be shocked really if the club renewed his deal. But yeah, no, I think it'd be really refreshing if there was some youngsters. It's not the Marco way, but it would be really nice if he's backed into a corner with injuries. It gives these guys opportunities, and I think as Mark was saying, it's an opportunity because they'll be hungry to take it. And yeah, it'd be just. I think it'd be really pleasing if we could see some cameos before the end of the year. A lot of other teams give their players a go. We just spoke about Obi at Man United, but there's been, a lot of the other clubs around the league give youngsters opportunities, and our youth team is as good as anyone's. So we've got to have some good players in there. They just need a chance. Okay, so let's go for predictions then for Saturday. Let's start with you, Mary. What you were quite confident before. What score you putting?
Yeah,
on
I'm still confident. I'm going with 3 points, 100%, and then Mike is welcome back again to the cottage and the pods. It's going to be a shocking one, but I'm going for a 2-0 clean sheet. And we've had, I think, 5 clean sheets all season, so I know people might think I'm mad, but I don't know, something I feel like this is it. We've got 2-0, we've got goals in us, and just touching on something Mark said earlier, we have got to shoot. Ipswich scored a banging goal from range. I can't remember who it was, but they scored a long distance shot. And so did Everton, to be fair. So let's hope they don't do that against us. But you just have to get your shots off. And we know Iwobi can absolutely level one or spin one in the top corner. So he hopefully will keep getting his shots off. But yeah, I'm going with 2-0 and I'm going with a clean sheet. Yeah.
Awesome. Like that. Mike?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little caught off guard because, Mary, that's the same result I was going to predict. Was a 2-0. I feel like we're going to get a reaction out of the boys after the last match. I feel like everybody realizes the importance of this. I'm going to go a step further, and I can't decide on one of the goal scorers because I think Sess is the best bet to score. We've said it for the entire time, and I think he's going to get one. I think the other one, my head says Raul actually breaks his duck and gets one. My heart says Jedi is going to get his first goal in the Premier League against his former club because I love a narrative. And so that's where I'm going to call it 2-0. We're going to go Sess and Jedi getting the 2 goals for us.
Wow, bold.
And I'm jumping. And when we score, I'm on the pitch, by the way.
Especially if it's Jedi, right?
And get him to sign another contract while you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure that he gets some rehab. Yeah. Oh my God, somebody out of contract.
Mark?
I'm going to agree with the comments, actually, with Colm and Steve. Tight 1-0. I think we're going to score pretty early, and then it's just going to be a really depressing, tense watch, because that's the Fulham way. It will never be 1-0 and we comfortably walk off into the sunset. It'll be like, oh, Beto's just hit the post. Oh, McNeil's curled one, even though he never does that. Like, it's going to be that, and Leno's gonna save our butts like he typically does. So 1-0 from me, and hopefully we don't all have egg on our face in a few days' time.
Yeah, I'm with Mike and Mary. I think I was going to say 2-0, so I'll stick with that. So it's a clean sweep. We've all predicted a clean sheet. We must be mad, but this is as we've all said, this is a winnable game, and I think yes, we have to win this really, because if you look forward, the next 2 games are really, really tough. After today, we've got Brentford, who are in really, really good form, and they've been scoring goals all season. Brentford, Wissa and Bueno between them have scored 35 goals in 35 Premier League games. I mean, that's unbelievable. They should be so much higher in the league, but they just start the season conceding so many. Unfortunately, they've turned it round. They're a real form side, and that is going to be a real tough game. And the problem is, you know, they're also very much in this European running and arguably have the best fixtures. So, you know, we need to keep the pressure on them. And that one I'm very nervous about. Then, of course, Man City's anyone's guess, really. I mean, obviously, we haven't beaten them in the last 20 games. I think we've lost the last 20 games to them in the league. It's crazy. And, you know, it is the last game of the season, and all their objectives might have been completed by that game, which may give us a chance. But, you know, it's not one you could bank on Fulham picking up points from, that's for sure. Looking at the table, we know where we are. We've slipped into the bottom half right at the end, kind of limping towards the end of the season. We need to find some form. Really disappointing, Mary, to see us slip down to the bottom half for the first time in as long as I can remember, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's we're not used to it, actually. But then again, if you look at it, we are in a very good position. And I think if you look at the points in the bottom three, if they don't win any more games, what are they on? About 22, 23 points, I think, in the bottom three. We were pretty much safe in about December, I think. So when you look at it like that, we've done pretty well. We've had quite an easy season. But no, I would like to be in the top half. If we don't get Europe, we don't get Europe. We've had a brilliant season. And like we touched on earlier, we've improved every season. And the fact we're in this position with 3 games to go and we have something to fight for that's not relegation is also very exciting. So, yeah, it's a shame. I want to finish top half. And, yeah, like we've said, if we get Europe, we get Europe. But we've got to strengthen the squad regardless over the summer and just have that depth for the future. But there's a lot to play for. And I don't know how Brentford are now up there. It's quite hard to look at that one.
I know we've said that Brentford probably is the easiest run out the rest of the way, but as you look at the teams that they're playing, they're going to have a lot more freedom to do with what they want to, because at the end of the day, Ipswich is already down. Wolves, you know, they're safe somehow. I'm not 100% sure how. And then, yeah, we've got everything to play for. I don't know if that's as easy of a run as everybody should be thinking it is, as opposed to them having to necessarily play, you know, somebody like a Palace right now who's actually getting ready for something real, or a Tottenham or United who don't actually have to have other priorities. So I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, fair comment. Yeah. And Mark, you know, I think it was very much like the results went against us last week, and you know, it makes us probably an underdog now in the running. Our odds certainly have dropped for finishing 8th. But this weekend is really a game we can turn it around, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I absolutely gave all my Arsenal friends shit for letting Bournemouth beat them. Like, come on, man. And they're like, oh, we're preparing for the Champions League. Well, that went bloody great, didn't it? Thanks for that. Congrats. So I'm probably going to get stick from anyone that's an Arsenal fan if they listen to us. But yeah, that was deeply disappointing. But you know, last minute penalty for Isak against Brighton, so that was okay. That's cool. Don't know what happened. Brentford United, didn't watch the highlights, but that seems like a bonkers game. 7 goals. So there you go. Yeah, it's pretty tough, but we have to, like Mary said earlier in the pod, if only for our morale and our sanity, we need to win, right? Even if Europe is done, which is unfortunate, which it could be, if the other teams just keep performing and they end up above us, at least so we can look back and get our record points total with pride. Let's just win it. Let's try and finish strong.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and next section, we've had loads of brilliant questions in our Discord group for tonight's show. And as I said at the start, if you want to send a question in for the pod, whether it be the post-game review or after dark, you can sign up to the Discord. It's really easy. The link's in our pod description, and then write your question in the podcast questions section. So Mark's going to read these out for us, and we'll just try and fly through them. So over to you, Mark.
Let's start with a spicy one from Dazzer. He goes, who is everyone's dream signing? parentheses, keep it fairly realistic. So, 70, 80 million budget maybe, but maybe a little bit lower.
I would like, I think my dream signing, and it came up, we were linked in Jan, not strongly linked, but we were linked in Jan, Douglas Luiz from Juve. I just think that we desperately need a strong number 8. And I think he is a fantastic set piece taker. I think he gets around the pitch. He's part of the reason that Aston Villa got into the Champions League last year. He was a big part of their team. And I just think he'd be like the perfect fit. He's obviously a Portuguese speaker as well, or just be the number 8 that we've been missing. But maybe it isn't realistic, but it's kind of semi-realistic. So, I took the question quite literally.
I don't know if it's a dream sign or not, but Delap, I think he could add something in many aspects, and he has the experience. And I know, obviously, they've not done too well this season, but he is someone that could add quite a good value. He scores goals. He's involved in goals. He's physical. I just feel like he would be a really good signing, and he could mould into our team quite well.
Great shout.
I mean, I'm jealous because Skibby stole my idea at the beginning of this in the comments, because it's already a done deal. Josh Sargent's coming to Fulham. No, in all seriousness, I was really thinking about this, and there are two. One is a little more realistic than the other, and it'd be one or the other. The realistic one, we were linked to him again in January, is Chukwueze. I think that's how you say his name. Another Nigerian coming in on the wing. Would be phenomenal. He's very tricky. He is well down the pecking order. My dream, though, and again, you see the hat is full America. I have to say Christian Pulisic. If we could somehow pull that off, maybe if we got into Europe, maybe Jedi gives him a little ring and says, "Hey, why don't you come here?" If I remember correctly, AC Milan has been really reliant on him this season, and I'm not sure how well they're doing in their league. So if we could somehow make the Conference League, let's bring over Pulisic.
Another good shout.
I'm going to throw in one name there from me. He was with us before, and I do think he has a little bit of an attitude problem if we're not playing in the Prem. But there was a very, very brief mention of Frank Zambo and Gisa, and we do need an 8. Douglas Luiz is also, he's a great shout, but he seems to be setting his ambitions pretty high. And Gisa as well, probably. But I mean, if we could sing, that would be the name I get on the back of my shirt. I don't know why, but I love that man. He's just so.
I thought you were going to say Lookman for a second.
I did
as well. I'll take both of them.
Yeah.
I like the comment though. If the dream signing is Marco for another 3 years, call him. I'm all in with you.
Not 3, 5.
He said 3. I'm just quoting him.
Okay, cool. All right, another question. This one from our very own Skibby. If you had the opportunity to give a speech to the current squad, what would you say?
Ooh.
Any takers?
I'd lean on the Brentford are doing well, and do we really want them to finish above us? I said we've got to play them in 2 games' time. Do we really want to turn up at that Legoland bullshit stadium and get turned over by those bus stop wankers? Definitely not. And I'd also say we need to do something different with our set pieces. Come on, guys. Just same old thing every time is not working. So come on, let's mix it up and try. And even if it's a short corner, yes, a short corner. I said it. Try something different to try and unlock these defenses. So I'd probably lean into those 2 points.
I would jump on that and say shoot, and get shots off. Someone score from outside the 18-yard box. Absolute top bins. In fact, I don't care where it goes, but somewhere in the posts. So shoot. And I would also love to be singing Brentford get battered everywhere they go. So I would also enjoy your speech on that one.
See for me, I think I'd take the substitute teacher approach and start putting on movies. I'd start probably with Ted Lasso and telling him to be to be curious, not judgmental. And then I'd play Any Given Sunday and tell them to absolutely go. The inches we need are all around us. We've just got to take them. And I think that's where I definitely lean into.
Brilliant.
Wow, all different styles of management there. So yeah, impressive. Maybe all three at once. Let's see what happens. All right. We've spoken about it a little bit, but this one's quite good. I'm going to paraphrase from Spanish FFC Ultras, talking about Marco possibly taking Fulham as far as he can. So do you reckon when he's talking about that, one, is it a ploy to get more money from the Khans? Perhaps for himself, perhaps for the budget. And secondly, who would you pick as a replacement manager? I think we've been linked to a couple in the Discord. I don't really know the Sheffield Wednesday guy too well. I know Liam Rossinier has been a name that's shouted about a little bit as well. But can we think of anyone who we would perhaps like to take the mantle of manager at Fulham should the unthinkable happen?
Skibby shouting McKenna in the chat. I've heard a few people say that, even though Ipswich have gone down, he's still highly thought of and plays like a good style of football. And maybe with better players, he would do well. My shout personally, and it's a little bit of an emotional connection to the player, but I think Vincenzo Montella at Turkey is gettable for Fulham. And obviously he played for us for half a season about 20 years ago. And had like a little cameo with us, and he scored a few goals, and he kind of I think he did himself proud when he was over here. And I just think that he plays a really nice style of football, not too dissimilar to Marco. So I don't think it would be like revolution. And I think he'd be a player, quite high profile manager that the players would respect. So I think that'd be quite an ambitious move. He's got a connection to the club and plays a similar style of football. So that'd be my shout.
Yeah, I think for me, there are two that come to my head, and I was thinking about it similarly to you. Hart wants to say Louis Bo. He's gotten his experience, come back, like pick up the project where we kept going. I've heard this one, and I haven't heard it very loudly, but it's kind of interesting. The idea of somebody maybe like a Bruno Lage, who has some Premier League experience, has similar connections to the squad in the Portuguese league. He's currently managing at Benfica, who have been doing, pretty well. I think they bounced back pretty nicely. I wouldn't hate that. I'm not sure if he's actually going to be a great manager or if it's just going to be Marco light. But that was one that kind of stuck out to me when I was reading.
Cool.
I just find it an interesting point that, if Marco's saying he's taken us as far as he thinks he could, because like we said earlier, we've got better every year. And also, if you look at the games we have played and the moments we've conceded, yes, we've also scored some brilliant last minute goals and got some points, but we've also let in goals right at the end. The Everton, for example, Everton away, 1-0, 94th minute, that could have been 3 points, it's 1. So when you start thinking about like all those last minute goals, and to be fair, every team can do this, but suddenly we're so much higher up the table. And like, would he be saying that? Do you know what I mean? So I always find it a bit of an interesting statement when a manager says, I've taken them as far as I can. I understand that if maybe you're just cruising the whole time and you're always mid-table, but actually we're getting better. Felix Magath, bring him back.
Maybe not, Cole. Maybe not Felix Magath. But just to add to Mary's point, one thing I found really interesting is in terms of points lost from winning positions, I think we're third in the league behind 2 relegation squads, maybe, or Ipswich, I think. I think it was about 24. We're really high up in the league, points lost from winning positions. However, the plus side is we're also quite high up on the table of points gained from losing positions, right?
I think we're third. I think we're third in that one.
Brilliant, exactly. So what does that mean? That means we're good at scoring first and pretty crap at defending after that. But it also means that we have fight in us if we're losing, right? We don't just roll over, which is quite cool. So if we just firm up the back, the funny thing is we're talking a lot about like we need more firepower up front, which we absolutely do, at least according to the eye test and probably according to the XG and things like that. But maybe we're a little shaky at the back as well. I think there's only so much we could attribute it to, like deflections and luck. But I thought that would be fun to add as well.
I do think we are a bit. Sorry, I do think we are a bit shaky at the back as well, because what I noticed in the Villa game was they were running through us a little bit and running in behind on to the end of balls. There was one chance, I think, a through ball literally went through 3 of our players, and Ollie Watkins, luckily Leno got it, but Ollie Watkins was able to run through. And there's a few other moments, I know someone touched on it, Anderson's pace earlier, where I just felt like it was more evident in the Villa game that they were able to run onto balls quicker than us, or run past our players to get onto the end of a cross. So yeah, I just touched on that point. I do think some of it is we really need to tighten up at the back.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's about it. We've hit the
That's about it.
mark.
No, that was some great questions. As I said, please keep them coming. There, so really enjoy doing this at the end of the show. And listen, we've had some great questions in the comments today too. It's been alive in there, and it's really helped us out. So yeah, thanks for everyone for joining along and giving us some additional content to discuss. So anything left to do is just to say, please check out our socials. Please sign up to our Discord. There'll be plenty of transfer news in there going into the summer. Fulham fan news is very active in there. So if you want to keep up to date with stuff, make sure you join. And just thanks to everyone for joining us here today. We'll definitely be back on Sunday to review the game. I'm not sure the lineup yet, but we'll definitely be back to review the win against Everton. Mark, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for doing the questions.
Always a pleasure, Dave.
And Mary, bold. I love the prediction, and I share it. I think it's going to be a home win on Saturday.
Yeah, it's got to be. And now that David Moyes is back in charge, I think I was speaking to my parents on the weekend, and there was a period of time when he was manager before that we won every home game and then lost every away game. So if we can go back to that form, I think we won like 6 home games and lost 6 away games. So yeah. I don't really know what the point in playing both games was, because it was the same every time. But if we want to go back to that form this weekend, that'd be lovely. And it'll be so nice to have a clean sheet. It would just be such a bold way of going into the last run. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday. I'm feeling excited. So it's been good to chat about it, and the comments has been great tonight. So yeah, here we go.
And Mike, let's pray that your debut at Craven Cottage is a successful one.
Yeah, I have a flight to catch pretty soon that I'm very excited for. I guess the question I will end it for, at least my part on this, is what color kit am I supposed to wear? I feel like I should wear the traditional whites, but I'll be honest, I love the 3rd kit from last season, and that's my favorite thing. I think that Fulham is second favorite thing that Fulham has ever produced. So I'm not sure if it's proper manners for me to wear my whites, but I have them in the bag just in case.
Is that the pink one?
No, it's the black one with the pink cutouts in it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe bring that one. Bring on, and then another. Just a reminder as well from Jim. He's intent on getting you drunk on Saturday. Bring the beers from Mike. Love it. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. It's been a really fun show, and let's look forward to Saturday and for Fulham to get a win and a clean sheet. And Mary, if you could see us out and end the pod in the traditional way, it would be much appreciated.
Right, well, we look forward to the clean sheet, and you